Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Vaibhav Jyotsna Srivastav, and with me is Anita Anand, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines. Britain bids farewell to Queen Elizabeth II. Coffin arrives at Windsor Castle for a committal service at St. George's Chapel. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Singapore Deputy Prime Minister Lawrence Wong discuss ways to boost bilateral ties in digital connectivity, green hydrogen and fintech sectors. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi appreciates military-to-military cooperation between India and Egypt. Also agrees to further develop military cooperation during his meeting with Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. Indian High Commission in UK condemns violence against Indian community in United Kingdom's Leicester, seeks action against culprits. India emerges as the largest bilateral lender for Sri Lanka, overtaking China. US President Joe Biden has said that United States forces would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion. At least 94 people killed and over 100 injured in clashes on Kyrgyzstan-Tajikistan border. Typhoon Nanmadol in Japan brings ferocious winds and record rainfall. At least 2 people dead. And in cricket, India to take on Australia in the first T20 International of 3-match series in Mohali on Tuesday. Britain's longest-serving monarch, Queen Elizabeth II's funeral is underway. Her coffin began its final journey from the historic Westminster Abbey to Windsor Castle for a committal service at St. George's Chapel, where she will be laid to rest alongside her husband, Prince Philip, on Monday night. Her coffin has been lowered into the royal vault in St. George's Chapel in the grounds of the Windsor Castle. During the committal service, the crown jewels were taken from it and a ceremonial wand of office broken and put in their place. King Charles III, his sons William and Harry, and other senior royals joined a solemn procession behind Queen Elizabeth's coffin through the silent streets of London, with huge crowds lining the route. Early in the day, a funeral service was held at Westminster Abbey, the building in which she was married and crowned the Queen. During his sermon, the Archbishop of Canterbury said, "The late Queen touched a multitude of lives during her 70-year reign." He said that she had an abundant life and gave loving service. The service witnessed 2,000 mourners coming together, including many world leaders like US President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron. President Draupadi Murmu attended the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II and offered tributes on behalf of the people of India. The UK's longest-serving monarch died last week on Thursday after reigning for 70 years.
In today's Hotspots section, we bring you a discussion on the final journey of Queen Elizabeth II.
The coronation of Queen Elizabeth II took place on 2nd June 1953 at Westminster Abbey in London. The United Kingdom's longest-serving monarch reigned for 70 years until her death on 8th of September 2022 at Balmoral Castle, her Scottish estate. The Queen's death triggered an official 10-day period of national mourning until the end of the state funeral on 19th of September 2022. The royal family will be in mourning until Monday, the 26th of September 2022. Earlier, on Wednesday, that is 14th September, the Queen's coffin left Buckingham Palace for the last time, being driven in a procession. Tens of thousands of mourners looked on as the gilded gates of the monarch's London residence opened to let through her coffin on its way to Westminster Hall, where it lay in state for public viewing until her funeral. throngs of soldiers in scarlet ceremonial uniforms marched ahead of and alongside the gun carriage, pulled by 7 black horses carrying the monarch's flag-draped coffin with her crown resting on top, to the sounds of a mournful dirge and a steady drum beat filling the air over Britain's capital. King Charles, his sister Princess Anne, and brothers Princes Edward and Andrew walked behind their mother's coffin, followed by William, Prince of Wales, and his brother Prince Harry. The sombre procession terminated at the doors of Westminster Hall, where the Queen's coffin was lifted off the carriage and carried inside on the shoulders of 8 young soldiers, as the late monarch's uniform-clad family members saluted her. Senior members of the royal family, including Queen Consort Camilla, Kate Middleton, Princess of Wales and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, all dressed in black, looked on as the Queen's coffin was carefully placed onto a purple catafalque at the center of a raised podium as a church choir sang a hymn in her honor. The king watched the Queen's grenadiers lowering their heavily embroidered standard and placing it at the feet of the catafalque as a mark of respect. Bodyguard officers and household cavalry officers in tall boots and helmets decorated with red and white plumes then arrived to take their positions on the podium around the coffin to begin their first 6-hour watch. There were 20 such vigils through Monday morning, when the Queen's coffin was being transported to Westminster Abbey for the funeral. The main portion of the service concluded when the royal family, led by the King, filed out of Westminster Hall. Members of the public waited in line to view the late monarch's coffin to pay their respects. Mourners huddled in a line that snaked across London, enduring the city's coldest night in months and waits that stretched up to 16 hours. The Queen's 8 grandchildren held a vigil for 15 minutes on Saturday beside the Queen's coffin at Westminster Hall. William, now the heir to the throne, stood, his head bowed, at the head of the coffin, and Harry at the foot. Both the princes, who are military veterans, were in uniform. Mourners continued to file past in silence. After days of lying in state, the body of the late Queen began its final journey as part of a grand state funeral, first to Westminster Abbey for a religious service in front of a congregation of thousands, and then on to Windsor Castle for a more intimate committal service, and finally a private burial. It was a day of emotion, pomp and ceremony, the like of which has not been seen since the last state funeral of Winston Churchill almost 60 years ago. Buckingham Palace said the Queen had made personal additions to the plans. President Draupadi Murmu is on an official tour to the United Kingdom to attend the state funeral from September 17th to September 19th. She expressed condolences on behalf of the Government of India. She is among the top Asian leaders to attend the event. President Murmu met King Charles III on September 18th at a banquet given at Buckingham Palace in advance of Queen Elizabeth's state burial. The Queen's casket was lying in state at Westminster Hall in London, where the President paid respect to her. At the Lancaster House, next to Buckingham Palace in London, President Murmu signed Queen Elizabeth II's condolence book. World leaders arrived at Westminster Abbey for the state funeral of Britain's longest-reigning monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, today. King Charles III led a somber procession behind his mother's coffin on the short journey from Westminster Hall to the Abbey. The Abbey's bell tolled once every minute ahead of the service, which began at 11 hours British summer time. US President Joe Biden, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Canadian President Justin Trudeau were among the world leaders at the Abbey. Former Prime Ministers Theresa May, Tony Blair, David Cameron, Gordon Brown, John Major, and Boris Johnson were also present. Some 2,000 mourners also bid farewell to the Queen at the state funeral, including members of many European royal families, including Belgium, the Netherlands, Spain and Denmark, as well as the Emperor and Empress of Japan. The service was conducted by the Dean of Westminster, David Hoyle, with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, giving the sermon. The service was filled with traditional church music and readings from the Bible. Towards the end, the last post was sounded before the 2-minute national silence. Following the service, the coffin was drawn in a walking procession from the Abbey to Wellington Arch at London's Hyde Park corner to the sombre toll of Big Ben. Gun salutes were also fired every minute from Hyde Park during the procession, and people watched in person from designated viewing areas along the route. Once at Wellington Arch, the coffin was transferred to the new state hearse for its final journey to Windsor Castle. There, the Queen's coffin entered St. George's Chapel for a committal service. Attended by a smaller congregation of about 800 guests, the committal service was conducted by Dean of Windsor, David Conner, with a blessing from the Archbishop of Canterbury.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. Welcome back to World News. Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister of Singapore, Lawrence Wong, and Trade and Industry Minister Gan Kim Yong in New Delhi on Monday. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman was also present during the meeting. The leaders discussed ways to boost bilateral ties between India and Singapore, especially in emerging sectors like digital connectivity, green hydrogen and fintech. In a tweet, Mr. Lawrence Wong said he, along with Minister Gan Kim Yong, were honoured to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Mr. Wong said they had excellent discussions on new areas of cooperation such as green hydrogen, solar energy, fintech and data links. He said India is an important strategic partner of Singapore across many sectors. He expressed happiness that the pace of bilateral engagements has picked up substantially as the pandemic subsides. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh called on President of Egypt, Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, in Cairo on Monday. Mr. Singh is on a 2-day visit to Egypt. He was received very warmly by President al-Sisi, who pointed out that bilateral relations between India and Egypt are well established through history. He expressed appreciation that military-to-military cooperation between both the countries has reached a new level and that signing of MOU on defence cooperation is a major achievement. Both leaders agreed to further develop military cooperation and focus on joint training, defence co-production and maintenance of equipment. They emphasized the need for co-production and to specific proposals in that regard. Mr. Singh expressed appreciation for the firm stand taken by Egypt against terrorism. President Sisi emphasized that there is need for India and Egypt to exchange expertise and best practices in countering the threat of terrorism. The Defence Minister acknowledged that Egypt is among the most important trading partners of India in Africa and that bilateral trade has expanded significantly. He noted with satisfaction the close cooperation in multilateral forums between India and Egypt. Mr. Rajnath Singh conveyed his best wishes for the successful hosting of COP27 in November 2022. In a tweet, Mr. Singh said that India and Egypt continue to work on enhancing mutual trust and confidence. He said it was reaffirmed that both the countries are committed to expanding their multifaceted cooperation. Mr. Singh visited the Egyptian Air Force Museum in Cairo on Monday. The museum captures the illustrious history of Egyptian Air Force.
Indian Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal attended the ministerial meeting of the India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership Council in Saudi Arabia. The outcomes of the meeting include streamlining efforts to realize the announcement made by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman during his visit to India in February 2019 about investments worth $100 billion in India. It also includes endorsement of the 41 areas of cooperation identified by the technical teams under domains of agriculture and food security, energy, technology and information technology. During his two-day visit, which concluded on Monday, Mr. Goyal met the Minister of Commerce of Saudi Arabia, Dr. Majid bin Abdullah Al Qassabi, and held wide-ranging discussions on the entire gamut of bilateral trade, commerce and investments linkages. Mr. Goyal also interacted with Minister of Energy Saudi Arabia, Prince Abdul Aziz bin Salman Al Saud, and discussed how energy security with climate change sensitivity can deliver economic growth and prosperity. The visiting minister also inaugurated the India Week in Riyadh as part of the ongoing efforts of the embassy to celebrate Indian products, especially food products like millet and textiles. In a tweet, he said, "Brand India, shining bright in Saudi Arabia." India has emerged as the largest bilateral lender for Sri Lanka, overtaking China. India has provided a total of $968 million in loans to the island nation in 4 months of 2022. In the past 5 years, from 2017 to 2021, China had been the largest bilateral lender to Sri Lanka. The Asian Development Bank has been the largest multilateral lender in the past 5 years and disbursed funds amounting to $610 million in 2021. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, had said that India had provided nearly $4 billion in food and financial assistance to Sri Lanka.
In United Kingdom, a scuffle has escalated into communal tension between Hindu and Muslim communities in Leicester City. A Hindu temple was vandalized and a saffron flag outside the temple was pulled down by unidentified people in East Leicester. The Leicestershire Police has initiated an investigation after a video of the incident surfaced online. According to reports, there has been continuous trouble since the 28th of August when India and Pakistan played a match in the Asia Cup T20 cricket tournament in Dubai. India had won the match. The Indian High Commission in the UK has released a statement condemning the vandalization of premises and the symbols of Hindu religion. It said that Indian High Commission has taken up the matter with the UK authorities and has sought immediate actions against those involved in these attacks. The High Commission has also called on the authorities to provide protection to the affected people. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Monday participated in the India CELSC Quartet meeting held on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. CELSC stands for Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. He led the Indian side, while the quartet was represented by Foreign Minister of Argentina Santiago Cafiero, Foreign Minister of Guatemala Mario Adolfo Bucaro Flores, Foreign Minister of Trinidad and Tobago Dr. Emery Brown, and Vice Minister for Multilateral Affairs of Colombia Laura Gil Savastano. In a release, the External Affairs Ministry said that both sides expressed satisfaction at revitalizing the India CELSC Forum. They expressed happiness at the growing engagements of India with Latin American countries. They also reviewed the entire spectrum of India CELSC relations. The meeting took stock of developments towards a post-COVID pandemic economic recovery. They agreed to work closely in sectors including trade and commerce.
U.S. President Joe Biden has said that United States forces would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion. However, his statement has drawn an angry response from China. Asked in a CBS 60 Minutes interview broadcast on Sunday whether U.S. forces would defend the democratically governed island claimed by China, Mr. Biden replied that yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack. Asked to clarify if he meant that, unlike in Ukraine, U.S. forces, American men and women would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion, the U.S. president replied yes. The CBS interview was just the latest time that Biden has appeared to go beyond long-standing stated U.S. policy on Taiwan, but his statement was clearer than previous ones about committing U.S. troops to defend the island. Asked to comment, a White House spokesperson said U.S. policy towards Taiwan had not changed. The interview with President Biden was conducted last week. Meanwhile, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said on Monday that China has lodged stern representations with the United States on the issue. Mao Ning, spokesperson at the Foreign Ministry at a regular media briefing, said China reserves the right to take all necessary measures in response to activities that split the nation apart. On the other hand, Taiwan's Foreign Ministry has expressed its thanks to Biden for his reaffirming of the US government's rock-solid security commitment to Taiwan. At least 94 people have been killed and more than 100 injured in clashes on the Kyrgyzstan-Tajikistan border. Late on Sunday, Kyrgyzstan reported an additional 13 deaths, taking its total death toll to 59. Tajikistan also said that 35 of its citizens had been killed and more than 100 injured. Fighting between the two Central Asian states broke out on Wednesday before a ceasefire was agreed on Friday. Both countries are accusing each other of using tanks, mortars, rocket artillery and saw drones to attack outposts and nearby settlements.
In Japan, Typhoon Nanmadol has brought ferocious winds and record rainfall to western part on Monday as one of the biggest storms to hit the country in years. It has killed at least 2 people, disrupted transport and forced manufacturers to suspend operations. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida delayed his departure to New York, where he is due to deliver a speech at the UN General Assembly. Japan's 14th typhoon of the season made landfall near Kagoshima City late on Sunday before battering the western island of Kyushu and roaring into the main island of Honshu on Monday morning. In Iran, a massive protest continues over the death of a 22-year-old girl, Mahsa Amini, who was arrested and allegedly beaten by morality police for violating the country's strict hijab regulations. She had gone into a coma and later died on Friday. Protests have erupted at multiple locations in Iran after a huge social media outrage. Many Iranian women have posted their videos online in which they could be seen cutting their hair and removing their headscarves.
In Pakistan, the Islamabad High Court on Monday ordered the removal of terrorism sections from a case registered against PTI chairman Imran Khan over his remarks against additional sessional judge Zeba Chaudhry and officials of the Islamabad police during a rally in Islamabad last month. 2 members of the court announced the verdict on a PTI plea to quash the terrorism case against Imran. The court ordered that proceedings on the other sections in the case would continue in the relevant forum. Information and Broadcasting Minister of India, Anurag Thakur, has said that the COVID-19 crisis has thrown up challenges as well as provided an opportunity not just to reinvent journalism but to redefine the media as a trusted source of news and information. He said, real journalism is about facing the facts, presenting the truth and letting all sides of the platform to present their views. Addressing a meeting of the Asia Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development, AIBD, in New Delhi on Monday, the Union Minister said, in his personal opinion, the biggest threat to mainstream media is not from new age digital platforms, but rather the mainstream media channel itself. He pointed out that if any channel decided to invite guests who are polarizing, who spread false narratives and who shout at the top of their lungs, the credibility of that channel goes down.
Our mainstream media organizations have a great challenge to provide truthful, accurate, reliable news faster while preserving media ethics and values. Real journalism is about facing the facts, presenting the truth, letting all sides the platform to present their views. I strongly believe that journalists are duty-bound to report news without fabrication, despite temptations to compete with those who propagate false news.
The minister informed that the Prasar Bharati has been sharing DD India channel in the OTT platform of South Korea on reciprocal basis, including exchange of several co-production programs. Prasar Bharati is also uplinging Bangladesh TV on its Free-Dish platform. He added that the ministry has also partnered with Australia in the field of broadcasting in March 2022 through program sharing. In Bangladesh, over 3 million children are trapped in child labour, of which 1.3 million are in hazardous forms of child labour. 1 in 5 children does not complete primary school. Nearly half of children do not have birth registration. This was revealed in a survey jointly conducted in all the 64 districts of the country by the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics and the UNICEF. In order to tackle the child protection related issues in the country, the government of Bangladesh announced that it will triple the number of social workers from 3,000 to 9,000.
In cricket, India will take on Australia on Tuesday in the first T20 international match of three-match series. The match will be played at Punjab Cricket Association IS Bindra Stadium in Mohali at 7:30 in the evening. India will face South Africa in a three-match ODI and a three-match T20 international series from September 28. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated wrestlers Vinesh Fogart and Bajrang Punia for winning the bronze medal at World Wrestling Championships in Belgrade. In a tweet on Monday, Mr. Modi said that both wrestlers made the country proud. He added that this is special for both wrestlers as Vinesh became the first Indian woman to win 2 medals on this platform and Bajrang won his 4th medal.
The Sensex and the Nifty today gained more than 0.5% even as the cues from global share markets were negative. The Sensex finished above 59,100 points and the Nifty closed above 17,600 level. A report from the business desk.
The Sensex climbed 300 points to close at 59,141. Nifty also rose 91 points to end at 17,622. At the global stock markets, most Asian stock markets fell as investors fled risk-driven assets ahead of a U.S. Federal Reserve meeting later this week. Trade did not take place in Japan's Nikkei 225 due to a holiday. European shares were also down in intraday trade. Global crude oil prices fell around 2.5% in intraday trade. Brent crude was trading at $89.20 per barrel. Back home at the multi-commodity exchange, gold futures for October was trading at 49,200 rupees per 10 grams. And in the forex market, rupee weakened 3 paise against the US dollar. The domestic currency closed at 79 rupees and 77 paise against the American unit. This is Lalema Aneja Dang for World News, All India Radio.
And now, let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Washington Post reports that Pentagon opens sweeping review on clandestine psychological operations. The Guardian writes that anger has flared among social media users in China after 27 people died when a bus carrying them to a COVID-19 quarantine facility crashed in the southwest province of Guizhou. South China Morning Post reports that Hong Kong journalist group chief charged days before Oxford Fellowship trip. The Financial Times writes that Biden says U.S. would defend Taiwan from Chinese attack. The Japan Times says U.S. vows continued deployment of strategic assets after new North Korean nuclear law. The Wall Street Journal writes that Hurricane Fiona knocks out Puerto Rico power grid, sweeps away bridge.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. Britain bid farewell to Queen Elizabeth II. Coffin arrives at Windsor Castle for a committal service at St. George's Chapel. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Singapore Deputy Prime Minister Lawrence Wong discuss ways to boost bilateral ties in digital connectivity, green hydrogen and fintech sectors. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi appreciates military-to-military cooperation between India and Egypt. Also, agreed to further develop military cooperation during his meeting with Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. Indian High Commission in UK condemns violence against Indian community in United Kingdom's Leicester, seeks action against culprits. India emerges as largest bilateral lender for Sri Lanka, overtaking China. US President Joe Biden has said that United States forces would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion. At least 94 people killed and over 100 injured in clashes on Kyrgyzstan-Tajikistan border. Typhoon Nanmadol in Japan brings ferocious winds and record rainfall, at least 2 people dead. And in cricket, India to take on Australia in the first T20 international of 3-match series in Mohali on Tuesday. And now before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favourite bhajan, Vaishnava Jan, by artists from Nepal.
पीड़ पर आई जा
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.